Hey everybody, we're continuing on in this lesson with Pliny's letter to Tacitus, describing the death of his uncle, Pliny the Elder. We're picking up at line 160 of Richard Lafleur's Wheelock's Latin Reader. And this is the description of the eruption and the plight of the people, as Lafleur says. So let's get started. Interim e Vesuvio monte, pluribus locis latissimae flammae, altaque incendia relucebant. Excellent right there. So let's pause right there with the comma. We've got a decent clause to work with. Interim, we've probably seen this in English before, just an adverb meaning meanwhile. So we can kind of leave that out. Meanwhile, a preposition, we know it's going to take the ablative because that's what it always does. We have Vesuvio right there. We also have Monte, so from Mount Vesuvius, they'll put the Monte after. So we have that finishing up. We get more potentially ablatives here, but note that there's no que, there's no way to connect that. They can't be part of this prepositional phrase that we have going on here, starting at A and ending at Monte. So what do we do with this pluribus lucis? With to by means of many locations. Latissimae flammae. So latus, wide, so this is the superlative, and then we don't know what that could be, but probably feminine, nominative, plural. Definitely going with flammae. They're both first declension here. We need to read on to see if these are all datives, ablatives. We're in a lot of ambiguity right now. Altaque, again, an ambiguous noun. It could be a lot of things with that A ending, especially as here when we don't have a macron. We don't know if it's short or long. I drew those in backwards order. This top one is the short, and this is long, obviously, but back to it. Altaque incendia relucebant. So here we finally have a verb, and it's plural, and we haven't had any good subjects necessarily before, nothing that was unambiguously nominative, but we know we're looking plural, so that's going to work out quite well here. We'll say that these are going to be nominative, plural, feminines, and then here we have, with this que connecting these equals, these are going to be nominative, plural, neuters. And all of these together, so the broadest flames and the highest fires, we might say go together, and that this que here also connects them quite well. So all of these things, fires and flames, they're both broad and wide, are shining forth. This is a little bit what we might call pleonastic. That is, saying more than you need. This is kind of a Greek stylistic term. Saying more than you need. Really, we're just saying fires and fires, and they're both broad and wide, but this is a little bit more poetic. It's a way of emphasizing what's going on in the scene. So then we're still left with this pluribus locis, and as I said, there's no que here. We can't connect it with the A. So meanwhile, from Mount Vesuvius, what we need to kind of do is treat this as an ablative of location. In many places. And again, so from the mountain, in many places on the mountain, wide flames and tall fires were shining forth. Good. Quorum. Well, we can't really tell what the gender is here. It's either masculine or neuter, but it's going to be going back and referring to something plural, of which the fulgor, I always associate this with thunderbolts, but let's see what they give as our word in the back of Wheelock. Just checking it out, they say flash or brightness. So what we're talking about there is the it's like a lightning bolt, a flash, the brightness of the light, its brightness and its clarity, excitabatur, and Lafleur helps us out here. So all this has been in a relative clause. We'll get to what that relative clause does a little bit more, but this here, we're finally closing it here. These are both nominative, so they're going to be the subject of this verb. And excitari, this kind of deponent verb, means to kind of raise, elevate, to make stand out. And it works with this ablative here that we have, tenebris noctis. So noctis is actually a genitive modifying tenebris. So we have this ending that looks similar, but this is actually a short I, while this is a long, short genitive singular I. This is a long is. So to read this out loud, tenebris noctis, we've got the shades, the darkness, the shadows of night. So, you know, of course the flames are bright even in the daytime, but because of the night, they're the brightness of it has been kind of elevated by the shades of night. So we're just kind of saying that there's a contrast here. So back to this quorum, we know it's masculine or neuter plural, so it's modifying, it's a kind of genitive working with these nominatives, the brightness and the clarity of these things, and these things being the broadest flames and the highest fires. Well, we note that this is neuter, but these are feminine. How do we not have a feminine thing here? Well, the truth is, as we've seen countless times before in this very sexist language, although it's not, I mean, these are, it's sexist in a way, but it's not saying that these were conscious decisions made by Roman men who said, let's when we blend masculine and feminine, we get masculine only. That does happen, but it's just a kind of linguistic convenience that will go to the masculine, or even here the kind of neuter of them all. We've got things that we're talking about. So I would say, while this could be masculine or neuter, since we don't have anything masculine, we would want to call this neuter genitive plural. But that's a bit of a quibble. That's kind of an academic point, right? All that we're saying is that it's referring back to the flames and the fires. So to wrap this all up, meanwhile, from Mount Vesuvius, in many locations, broadest flames and highest fires were shining forth, the brightness and clarity of which, that's how we'd have to do the order in English, was made greater, we might say all the greater, by the shades of night. Good. Let's continue on to the next sentence. Ille. So as often, this is nominative singular subject, and it's our masculine. And this is, of course, Pliny the Elder. That's who we're talking about. So he, agrestium, this ium ending could be a few things, but it is genitive plural because we're working with the adjective agrestis, agreste, and this is a substantive. This is when the adjective stands in for a noun. So we're saying agricultural people, country folk. So he, by me, so, and then we're going to have to, it's going to take a little while to get what this all means, but of the country folk, genitive plural, probably working with trepidatione, trepidation. This is a nice ablative, so we're going to have a kind of ablative of means, something like that here, the agrestium just being dependent upon it. Ignes, all right, so that's third declension. It could be nominative, could be accusative, and we see in the next word, ignos, that's going to refer back to the masculine ignes, so we are indeed accusative. So the fires having been left, and the villas, that is the the nice rich houses, having been deserted. So we've got this nice, all these are direct objects, they are accusative. We'll need to get to the verb of it all soon, but that's what we've got. Also, I'm saying they're direct objects. That might not actually be true. This could be an indirect discourse, but as we're moving left to right, we need to be making some working assumptions. So let's just think kind of direct object, maybe he's going to be pointing them out. We'll see. That guy, Pliny the Elder, points out the remaining fires in the deserted villas. We don't know yet. So per, this is a nice preposition. We're going to get an object. Here we have accusative. So this is through the emptiness, through the solitude. Ardere. All right, so we've got an infinitive. Burning. To burn. We haven't gotten anything better yet. We haven't gotten any main verb, so we might be indeed in an indirect statement. These might actually be subjects rather than direct objects. We need to see. In another preposition, we'll take a word like remedium. This ium, because I know, is actually an accusative singular neuter. And you could say that in doesn't really work with the genitive, so we know we're not talking about the genitive plural that we just had up there with agrestium. But note that, you really need to know your cases well. Know that this is, and your dictionary entries, otherwise you're not going to be able to tell a difference structurally between these, but morphologically they might be identical, but they really mean different things. Formidinous, that's going to be a nice genitive, going back to this noun, of terror. We might think, the French say, formidable, something that's wondrous, something that's terrifying almost. A remedy of terror. Dictitabat. So we know dico, right, to say. What is then dictito? Well, this extra kind of reduplication right there, that tito, this means keep on. And there are a few verbs that do this. It's a way of making kind of extra progressive the actual meaning of the verb. So kept on saying was saying repeatedly. The imperfect on its own kind of implies this progressive aspect, right? But this really does it. He just kept on repeating. All right, so that's going to be our main verb. It has to be because we're at the end of the sentence. So now we're going to be able to somehow work back to find what our indirect statement will be. So he says, kept on saying, let's move that verb all the way up there in our English kind of rephrasing. Pliny the Elder kept on saying that the fires having been left, maybe we might say actually that there's a gapped essay here now that we've kind of realized what we're doing. These aren't just participles paired with nouns, but these are participles that are part of a complex perfect infinitive that we need in this indirect discourse. So really, let me get out a new color. This has gotten complicated all of a sudden. We thought we were doing well. Here we're marking the indirect discourse. We've got our subject here. We've got this verb. We're going to have a lot of indirect discourse here. So that fires were left, and now we know what to do with this, the agrestium trepidatione. By means of, or on account of, the fear of the farmers, of the kind of town, the rural folk, fires have been left, and their homes had been deserted. Or maybe we don't need essay here. The fires having been left and the houses having been deserted, burned through the wilderness. So that's what he's saying. What's on fire? It's not that the mountain itself is exploding in a kind of catastrophe of, volcanic proportions. No, he's saying, oh yeah, people got scared. They saw the smoke coming out. It's just standard fires. It's not the end of the world. And he's saying this in remedium formidinus. So this is just an adverbial prepositional phrase. Most prepositional phrases are adverbial, but that just wanted to kind of hammer home that we're giving a reason, a cause for this dictatabat in order to be a remedy, kind of as a remedy, toward a remedy, a solution, a way of allaying their fear. So let's translate that all from the top one last time. He kept on saying that the fires had been left, and the villas, the fires which had been left, or the fires having been left, and the houses having been deserted, because of the fear of the kind of country folk, burned through the darkness, the emptiness. And he was saying this as a remedy of their fear, saying it's not the mountain that's on fire, it's people who left their lamps burning, who were stupid. It's fear that's the danger here. Fear over up here. Fear is the danger. Fear is the problem. It's not the mountain. So this obviously has a kind of repercussion for his immediate audience. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. That seems to be the kind of gist of that. We'll continue on with Tum Se Quieti in the next lesson. See you then.